I have an apology that I have to make. It's very serious. We got that and a whole lot more with a special guest on this edition of PHNX Sun Devils. Happy wonderful Wednesday here on the PHNX Sun Devil Show, live from Studio K, coming to you here in downtown Phoenix, of course, presented by Circle K. Head to any Circle K Arizona location where you can get any size Polar Pop or Froster for just 79 cents or 69 cents if you are part of the Inner Circle. That is now through September 3rd, so less than a month on that fantastic deal. I am Erik Ruby. I am not joined by Anthony Totri. I am not joined by Shane Diefenbach because it's annual vacation time for the boys, but you know who doesn't take a vacation, guys? It's the man who's always grinding, the man who's always in Sun Devil spaces. We've got Ralph Amsden in the building. What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm getting a reputation as a grinder phrasing.
Is that not okay? Do you want to officially say that you run from the grind? Is that what we're doing here?
No. I like it. I like it.
You seem a little apprehensive with it. I just want to make sure that it's okay. I don't want to label you.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, like, my dad was wrong. I work hard.
This is the satisfaction. This is the compliments that you need. Okay, I'm here to bring you up and build you up. We also got lifelong Sun Devil fan Damon Dog behind the Mac producing things. How you doing, Damon?
Chilling, dude. Just ready to talk Devils.
Just ready to rip. Just ready to absolutely rip. Well, guys, before we get into all of the big questions surrounding ASU football, I want you to make sure you like this video. I want to make sure you subscribe to this channel. We hit 30,000 subscribers recently, and we're continuing to go up and up. Make sure you do that. You can also check out some of this awesome merch. I like the shirt you're wearing, Ralph. I think we might be matching right now.
Yeah, twinsies.
PHNX Locker, go ahead and check that out. But before we get into football and everything, I said it in the cold open. I do have an apology I have to make. I disappointed myself yesterday. I disappointed my family, my friends, the viewers of the show. Ralph,
sounds like a Tuesday.
It sounds like a Tuesday. Ralph, you have no idea what I'm about to say. But yesterday, Totri and I talked about the Gonzaga ASU games that have now been scheduled. And Totri said the schools had never met before, and I did a very quick Google search. And what I shouldn't have done is relied on the AI summary of the Google search to be correct, in which I spewed just completely false information that I took as fact. And shout out to the people who called me out on it. I appreciate it. Gonna not do that ever again. So disregard what I said at the very beginning of yesterday's episode. That's all I'm gonna say. But now we stop looking back. We start looking forward. I blame Google.
Well, you are aware of the Gonzaga-Arizona State connection, right?
The connection? No, yes. I feel like you're leading me into something that I'm either going to feel really stupid I didn't know, or you're hitting me with a joke right now.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but Brock Osweiler is 6'8", and he had a basketball scholarship to Gonzaga, which is what they said every single time he dropped back as a starter at Arizona State. So it's nice to have these two schools be in the same sentence and not have it have anything to do with our guy Brock.
You know, that's funny. I had no idea where you were going with that, but that does make sense. I mean, every time you hear somebody talk about Brock Osweiler, they're like, hey, do you remember how tall he was? It's like, yes. Yes, I do remember how tall the tall quarterback was, all right?
And we have he's still that tall.
Yeah, he is still that tall. Everybody in the chat, we appreciate you guys. All right, so today I hit my man Ralph up, and I know Ralph is a wonderful mind in this space when it comes to ASU. So we're going to tackle about 8 questions. I know Ralph has one of his own about what's going on with this team and stuff that we want answered by the time this football season is over, or with some of these by the time camp is over and football season is starting. Now, this first one might also be the one that we go through the quickest, because to be quite honest with you, Ralph, it's been a topic of conversation repetitively. And it's the number one thing that everybody talks about when it comes to football, but especially when it comes to ASU football this year. Question number 1, who will be the starting quarterback week 1 for ASU football? If you had to give me just a name right now, and then we'll get into reasoning, it would be
Sam Levitt.
Okay. So is it close for you, or is this like an emphatic, that's what I believe is going to happen?
I think that they thought that was going to be what it was before he was a Sun Devil. And I think that the process has to play out. But if you carried that mindset and you presented him as the future throughout spring, regardless of who you brought in fall to compete, you should probably see something like that through, or your words are not going to start to match up with your actions. Obviously, it needs to be earned. But more goes into a quarterback contest than just who looks the best. It's always been that way, right? And so we're a couple of days removed from Kenny Dillingham saying there's 2 potential NFL quarterbacks on this roster. And I think with the way they've been going about this, obviously Trent's not the biggest. Obviously Trent doesn't run. Obviously Trent's been knocked out of a couple of games. So, Trenton Bourguet has been cast to the side. That's the reality. He's going to be around. He's always been around. If you need a spot start, he's going to give you a spot start. 15 quarterbacks have come and gone since he's been here. But what we need to do is we need to look at the way that Marcus Arroyo and Kenny Dillingham have been talking for the last several months, 5-6 months, and say, okay, like they're obviously looking for highest ceiling, and they know what Jeff Sims can do. You're not going to know what Sam Levitt can do until you throw him out for a start, and there's nothing better than to give somebody the red meat of an easy week 1 opponent. So it makes all the sense in the world to find out what you have by putting him out there, regardless of whether he's earned it far and away or not. That's been my expectation from the beginning. I fully expect Sam Levitt to be under center in week 1, barring injury or something along those lines.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also wouldn't be surprised if there is a little bit of a rough start. Maybe week 1 goes great because, strength of schedule, everything like that. But as time goes on, if they're not seeing exactly what they want out of Sam, I do think Jeff Sims is going to get some burn on this team. I don't think that there is just that clear cut Sam Levitt. He is going to be your guy no matter what. And there's a potential there, but I don't think you can sit up here and not have seen him play actual meaningful college football and say, well, there's no chance that anybody below him might not earn that nod. And Ryan Neal, referencing something that you referenced just a little bit ago, said, what do you think of Dilly saying there are 2 NFL QBs on this team? I like the support of Sims, but he has a career 31 touchdown, 29 interception, and 59 completion percentage. Dude is not an NFL player. We've talked about this a lot since that quote came out. It's very clear. It's a confidence instilling quote. Kenny believes in his guys. With Jeff Sims specifically, I was not the biggest fan of them bringing him in initially, and as time has gone on, I've actually liked the move. And one of the things that Kenny mentioned when he was talking to us was that he sat down with Sims and they went over his film and they went over all of his mistakes. And Kenny kept asking him, what happened here? What happened there? And he kept taking the blame on himself, putting it on himself. I missed this. I missed that. I didn't deliver there. I could have done this instead. But what Kenny told us, and obviously, we weren't sitting there watching film, but I take Kenny's word very seriously, was a lot of these plays were not his fault. A lot of these plays, there was bad communication on the offense. There was bad communication between the actual play call itself. And he's like, yeah, I knew a receiver was supposed to run this way instead of that way. But Sims didn't mention that. He just said, that's my fault, right? So if you're talking about purely potential, which is something William Jasper responded to Ryan in the chat by saying, Sims does have building blocks and athletic capabilities that you could say, squint and you could see an NFL player. But I think it's just a classic case of coach wanting to build up his guys, give him a good compliment. And who knows, maybe with the quarterback whisperer and Kenny Dillingham, somehow, some way that becomes a reality. But that's not something I'm banking on personally, Ralph.
Well, do you know what Emory Jones is doing right now?
Is he on a roster?
Yeah, he's playing quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. So what we need to remember is that for the first 70 years of, college football leading to, NFL draft stock, and for the last 30, 40 years, players improved over time. Right. Players improved over time. Jordan Travis, who is the cornerstone to Kenny Dillingham's quarterback reputation, right? Even though he wasn't necessarily there for Jordan Travis's two best seasons. By the time Jordan Travis had finished 4 full years in college football, he had thrown over 350 pass attempts and only had 22 touchdowns to 13 interceptions or something like that. By the time he was 22, the normal age at which somebody has moved on from college football. He played in all 4 of those seasons, by the way. Bo Nix, same deal. Came out much in the same way that Jeff Sims did, won his first start over a tough opponent. Jeff Sims' first start was actually against Kenny Dillingham, by the way. Georgia Tech beat Florida State, and Jeff Sims, I think, threw for over 300 yards. Jeff Sims is 22 years old right now. His record is what it is. He fumbles a lot. He's turned the ball over quite a bit. You can't run from your record, but you can build on it. And so, people improve. It's the thing that drives me nuts about college basketball fans. It's the thing that drives me nuts about college football fans is that, we have 30 years of statistics of where year 3 people would blow up, right? And so people do have the ability to improve. They do have the ability to kind of change their reputation. I don't know if you've ever heard this name before, but Jaden Daniels had a 10 touchdown, 10 interception season.
I'm sorry. That doesn't
ring it's an obscure name. It's an obscure name. But this is here's the thing. You get somebody in the right system and they find a way to make use of their physical tools in a way that is responsible. You'd be surprised at what could happen. And some stuff you don't know. You don't know until you get them. Yeah. You get them in the right situation. ASU might need Jeff Sims because things are a little crazy as far as the offensive line goes. And what we see out of Jeff Sims might not look anything like we see out of any of the other quarterbacks. So I think Arizona State's going to depend on all 3 of these guys. I think if you look at the recent history of Arizona State going all the way, at least 10 years, multiple players have started every single season. We're coming up on 10-year anniversary, me covering my first game. Taylor Kelly broke his foot in Boulder. Guess who came in? So, even Joey Yellen got a start. Even Brady White got a start. Even Dylan Sterling Cole got a start. So I wouldn't. I don't spend too much mental energy worrying about who the starter is going to be because multiple players are going to start. I just hope everybody is prepared.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that at the end of the day, when it comes to health and offensive line, that's not a problem that ASU has to deal with as much this season, just because last year was just a catastrophic, just series of events over and over again. But I do feel comfortable with, Levitt getting a start. I would feel comfortable with Sims. Now, is it something I'm like frothing at the mouth and jumping up and down for? No, but I think that in a system with Kenny Dillingham's where you are going to be relying on your running backs a lot more than I think you're going to be passing the ball, having somebody else who has the skill set and the athleticism that Sims has would be good. And at the end of the day, you mentioned Trenton Bourguet. The ball is going to find Trenton Bourguet. It always does. And he is somebody who's so smart. And if you look at the actual performances that he's at ASU, he's shown that he can go in and he can win you a football game. And so that's 3 guys that you can have there at quarterback. I agree with you. I think week 1, it's going to be Levitt. I think the majority of the season is going to be Levitt. But at the end of the day, anything's possible. There are a lot more questions that we got to dive into. And there's going to be a lot of quarterback talk over the next couple of weeks and even throughout the season. Question number 2. Are the players who did not play last year, either at all or barely any, aka just a redshirt season, able to step back in and make an immediate impact back in college football? A couple names I'll throw at you, the standouts. Of course, your Jordan Tysons and your Jake Smiths as the wide receivers, your Xavier Alford, and your Alton McCaskill as well, who redshirted at Colorado last year after an incredible year at Houston before that. Obviously them, whoever else comes to mind. Do you feel like relying on players who are a year plus removed from playing meaningful college football is maybe a little bit of some risky business for ASU?
If you're relying on them, it's certainly risky business. You shouldn't be relying on anybody who didn't play college football last year, whether they're a freshman or a senior. Like, you should not be in that position. Of the names that you gave me, Xavier Alford is probably the person that I have the most confidence in.
Right.
Man's been champing at the bit this entire time. I think you're going to see a couple of really special things out of Jake Smith. And I got to tell you, my favorite breakout player 2 years ago in the Pac-12 was Jordan Tyson.
Right.
And so, but at receiver, I do think you're going to have a rotating cast of characters. And as long as you have the opportunity to get them the ball, I think any one of them could flash something special. But the last time that Arizona State was dependent upon a wide receiver, Jalen Strong, you never want to be dependent on a wide receiver. And I can't recall any team that won anything of significance being fully dependent upon a wideout. So what it really comes down to is, are we going to get enough out of that stable of running backs to also not have to depend on Alton McCaskill? Because, like I said, you just shouldn't have to depend on anybody who did not play college football in 2023 or 2022. But I do think of those names, I think Alford is the one that I would rely upon the most.
Right. And I agree with you. I think if I had to, let's just say hypothetically, put money down and say which of these players is going to come in and maybe look like they didn't miss a beat, be able to step up and immediately impact, I would go with Alford as well, just from what you've seen in camp, from what you hear your teammates talk about, and even listening to him speak himself, that is somebody who is just absolutely ready to go, ready to play. But I think it's interesting because you say you don't want to be depending on people, and I guess maybe depending is the wrong word, because if I had to look at any one player on offense and say ASU is going to be dependent on them this year, it's Cam Scatterbo. And I have absolutely no doubts in my mind about what he can bring day in, day out. Zero. However, maybe it's not dependent, but in order for this offense, in order for ASU to overachieve, which is something that you would want to see in the second year under a new head coach, it's not necessary, but it would be a very welcome sign. You're going to need Jordan Tyson to look like how he looked a couple of years ago. And I know that that's a really big ask, but again, the same way if you talk to teammates, if you watch camp, you see him and you say, okay, that is your wide receiver number one. And maybe no team's going to go out and win a national championship fully just relying on a wide receiver or any sort of wideout, whatever. This offense is not going to reach their peak if Jordan Tyson is not at least clicking, maybe not on that same level, but on a pretty high level nonetheless. And I think the success of Jake Smith as well, beyond that, they kind of go hand in hand, because if both of them are coming in and making an impact, they make life easier on each other. And then that makes life easier on the running backs, which we will get to later. So maybe dependence the wrong word, but I think that in order for them to hit their peak, in order for them to actually have an offense that I think would strike some fear into the heart of defenses, you're going to need two guys who did not play last year to step in and to make rather immediate impacts.
Yeah. So all I can go off of is history. Let's take Marcus Arroyo's probably most loaded roster he's ever had. He used it to get a head coaching job, the 2019 Oregon Ducks, right? And you're going to look at that roster and you're going to say, who were they reliant on? That was a like a party favor bag offense. Anybody could go off at any time, but no one at any point was dominant. They were actually reliant upon Johnny Johnson III, who from Chandler, Arizona, 57 catches, 836 yards, 7 touchdowns. That was over 14 games. Then the next best receiver is Jalen Redd, who is kind of like a hybrid type player, maybe more of like a Raheem Brown type, and he had 50 catches, averaged 9.3 yards a catch. So it wasn't even a team that spread the ball around all that much or passed for high volumes, and that's with Justin Herbert at quarterback. Now, again, that's a Mario Cristobal coach team. He's kind of got a little bit of Herm in him. As far as, but they also on that team, they had CJ Verdell, Travis Dye, and Cyrus Habibi-Likio, 3 very, very good running backs who I believe combined for 400 carries between the 3 of them. And so I look at that as, this is what Marcus Arroyo did with the best offense he ever had his hands on. And I look at Arizona State's current roster and I'm like, I could see 400 carries between Arizona State's top 3 backs, and I could see their second leading receiver essentially be a slot hybrid type guy. So we're talking about these receivers, and as long as they make a play when they get the balls in their hands, I don't care, but I don't expect Arizona State to go out there and have an 80 reception receiver.
Yeah, I don't think anybody besides, I think Cam Scattaboo will have just an insane amount of either carries or touches compared to the rest of the room. I do think it's going to be very spread out and even. And that in itself is a weapon, right? Keeping defenses on their toes. They don't know where the ball is going. And of course, having Marcus Arroyo and Kenny Dillingham with his fingerprints on the offense as well. I'm sure they're going to be trying to maybe pull a couple tricks. And we're going to talk about the end of the running back room, the end of the wide receiver room as well. A couple comments from chat. William Jasper says, it's rare for players to make that kind of turnaround in the same program and under the same coaches, let alone moving programs and under different coaches. Brady says, CJ Fight is also a registered freshman that I think will make an immediate impact. I definitely have my eyes on CJ Fight. I think a lot of people on this team are expecting big things out of him. And then William Jasper once again says, the whole linebacker core could be the answer to this question. And I think what kind of wraps all of this up about players who didn't play last season is, while the strength of schedule is definitely easier at the beginning of the year, you are probably going to have to see some learning on the fly and getting readjusted to the sport. And I definitely think that by the end of the season to the beginning of the season, you're going to see some massive improvement along all of ASU's roster, but especially those guys that are working their way back into playing college football. Everybody in the chat, appreciate all of you sharing, all of our diehards as
chat's
well.
Going crazy.
Yeah, chat's going great. Chat goes crazy for you, Ralph. And you know what? I do too, right? So make sure you hit that like button for Ralph in here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And once again, I am broadcasting from Studio K because I love telling you guys about our friends over at Circle K. Listen, at this point, if you listen to the show and you're not a part of the inner circle, I forgive you. It's okay. However, you need to get your phone out absolutely right now, right this second, and sign up for their absolutely free membership program. Because if you don't like spending so much money, they're here to help you for free. Because if you sign up for the inner circle, you can get 25 cents off per gallon for your first 5 fill-ups. After that, you get 3 cents off per gallon on all fill-ups, unlimited, multiple times a day if you need to. And also, if you do that enough, you can get that up to 5 cents. And yes, please do not Google Ralph's name with Circle K. Don't do that. And especially as somebody like me who has had trouble with Google, I will be avoiding that. But another incredible deal they have going on right now, you can get any size Polar Pop or Froster for just 79 cents. If you are part of the inner circle, that can become 69 cents. Nice. And you can do that now through September 3rd at any Arizona location. Just find it in the app under inner circle and then offers. So join the inner circle for free by downloading that Circle K app today. Terms and conditions do apply and at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for more details. And Ralph, if I say 300,000 people, is that a pretty big number to you?
I'm from a state with 500,000 people. That is an enormous number.
So what if I told you that many people have rated a product 5 stars?
I would purchase it without asking any questions.
Well, guess what? You can ask all the questions you want because I got the answers. Because the answers is our friends over at Shady Rays. Listen, you can get any style, any color, anything that you want. If you just need to kill time, go to the Shady Rays website and look at all the different types of sunglasses that you can wear. All of them are absolutely fantastic, durable frames, crystal clear optics, and they are the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They're the perfect choice for if you're just driving around. They even have ski goggles if you need to hit the slopes. Ralph, they have absolutely everything in every single style. Me, it's a little bit too hot to go out on hikes right now, but of course you're still driving, and I am of the opinion that if it's really hot outside, let me see. I just got some Shady Rays thrown to me. This is the type of, oh man, I'm gonna look like such a frat guy right now. All right, listen, man. Shady Rays even got these for you. I don't think that these fit my face or my vibe at all.
I love them.
These are definitely Damon Dog's vibe.
I disagree.
You think this is the vibe?
Yeah. I mean, out at the dunes.
Yeah, out of the dunes for sure.
Like SRH on your rail car, yeah, you look
definitely
like you're ready for a fun weekend.
Just windows down, cruising, blasting some country music. This is the vibe for that. But listen, if you're trying to do a little bit more basic, your classic shades as well, they have those. They have everything. Plus, they have an absolutely no sweat return, worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. They have the most insane protection, whether you lose it or whether you break it. They give you replacements. And hey, guess what, Ralph? I buried the lead For our listeners and for our listeners only, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX, the 4 best letters in the alphabet, for 35% off polarized sunglasses. So try it for yourself. The shade's rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. William in the chat says, better than the blind mice shades. I don't know if you know, but I've gotten a new nickname from me, Ralph, the blind mouse. Because when I wear sunglasses, I look like one of the blind mice from Shrek. So that's the long list of my nicknames. But listen, we're moving on now. More questions. We talked about Jordan Tyson. We talked about Jake Smith. But beyond that, there are some really interesting names in the wide receiver room. And I want to talk about the back end because you mentioned you might see a lot of guys moving in and out and getting some burn. Names like Melquan Stovall, names like Caleb Black, Troy O'Meara. Maybe, Jake Smith isn't the number 2. Maybe he's coming in and contributing more from the back end. Would you consider maybe besides running back, wide receiver, one of the deepest rooms on this team?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, there are walk-ons at Arizona State that I genuinely believe could star on FCS teams. Mm-hmm. High on Coben Bourget. I saw a couple of features on another kid. I think that there are a lot of people. It's just going to be whether or not they get an opportunity.
Right.
And if you show that you could be depended upon, they're going to keep coming back to you. So it's a tough thing to be in a situation where you're waiting for an opportunity and if it comes your way, you have to maximize it. But that's the type of pressure that can really, really cause the cream to rise to the top. And I think that we'll see an evolution of where Arizona State starts out to maybe where they're at week 5 and 6
right.
with who is getting regular reps at receiver. You can't even afford really to be a number 1 receiver on this team and drop a couple of balls.
No,
you can't, because they're going to plug somebody else in who's been looking good in practice. I do think that it is an incredibly deep receiver room, even without Elijah Badger. I think Troy O'Meara, his ability to catch balls over the shoulder gives you kind of a diverse element. They have multiple guys that are very, very dangerous with the ball in their hands if you can create space. One of the things that Arizona State actually excelled at under Herm Edwards was wide receiver blocking. It'll be interesting to see if that continues over. And it just so happens they have probably the greatest blocking wide receiver of my lifetime in Hines Ward coaching them. And so I'd imagine, especially if this ends up being a 400 carry team between its top 3 backs, that you could see a lot of sets where you have guys on the field who maybe end up with 11, 12 catches at the end of the season, but they're getting 30, 40% of the reps because they have the ability to hold off their defender.
Yeah, and I think that with a coach like Kenny Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo as well, but I'm going off of what we saw with Kenny last year, is he likes to scheme up some different shit, man. He likes to throw a lot of stuff out there. And like you mentioned, they have a lot of wide receivers, but they have a lot of different skill sets and body types, like Troy being able to maybe hit that high point. But you look at somebody like Caleb Black, who's just got the speed and the burners, and somebody that in camp you might be looking at and say, that's somebody who can step up in that room and maybe take some touches away from a Jake Smith or from a Jordan Tyson as well. Melquan Stovall, I don't know if you play college football 25, but Melquan Stovall is like a god on the field. I'm serious. Just absolutely insane. And he's got the building blocks to be a receiver that you could see featured in this offense as well. And I don't think besides Jordan Tyson that there is kind of like a clear hierarchy beyond that. And I think Jake Smith is definitely the most tantalizing option because you, again, haven't seen him and you can talk yourself into potential. But I wouldn't be surprised if they just throw in as many different looks as possible. And with the way and the type of people that have been recruited to this team and the way Kenny's built this team, I don't think anybody's going to be mad. I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, I'm not getting my touches, because I think they all understand like this is what's going to be best for us. And there is just an absolute lot of talent in that room. And that's exciting, especially, Ralph, when you have a quarterback room that has either question marks in Sam Leavitt or somebody whose production was not what you would want to see out of a starting quarterback in Jeff Sims. Having this many different options, this many different types of receivers is a really good thing for somebody in the position that ASU is in.
Yes, it is. It is. And, I had said that I don't expect anybody to be the primary receiver. But you talked about Jordan Tyson, and it is possible if he stays healthy. There was a year under Arroyo where Dylan Mitchell was almost a 1,200 yard receiver. And so, it is very, very possible. But at the same time, I would expect it just to kind of be a cornucopia of contributors. Right. Now, on the optimism about, I don't think anybody's going to get mad. I don't want receivers on my team that aren't on the verge of a nervous breakdown every time they don't touch the ball. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of emotions.
Like not mad in the sense of checking out, but using that as like a motivation to go in, like a healthy competition. You know what I mean? That was the kind of mad I was saying, because I get what you're saying. I don't want somebody to be complacent with not playing. I 100% agree with you on that.
There are a lot of guys on this roster that are close to the end of their eligibility. And so, I think that could contribute to some senior leadership, or you could see a couple of people say like, maybe this isn't for me, and fade into the background. But when you have such volume, there's got to be 3 to 4 guys that are going 110% all the time that you can go with. Not a position group I'm worried about at all.
No, and a name we haven't mentioned is transfer Malik McLean as well. And that's somebody that a lot of people are very high on coming into ASU in his first year over here. So that is definitely a room to keep an eye on. And like Ralph said, there might not be just a true number one there, but there is a true number one when it comes to the running back room. We all know it's the man that everybody loves. It's the man on the leave a like on the bottom of the screen right now. So make sure you leave that like. It's Cam Scattaboo. But beyond that, Ralph, do you have a leader in the clubhouse per se for who would be running back number 2? Because that is our fourth question.
I think a healthy DeCarlos Brooks is your guy, but Alta McCaskill has made a pretty clear case that when given an opportunity and when healthy, he could be special. So, but I look at DeCarlos Brooks. I talked to some of his Cal teammates a couple of weeks ago at ACC Media Day. His one cut style it's really perfect for no nonsense football to go out and get you 5 to 6 yards. Mm-hmm. And he is a tough runner. He's just got to physically hold up. He physically holds up and you give him carries. I think he brings you the type of dependability where he could really, really lock that down. But I don't see him breaking 65, 75 yard runs, which is a thing that, that's going to make the fans, go crazy. And Alta McCaskill can give you that. So I would say right now, I believe that a healthy DeCarlos Brooks might be the best pure running back on the roster. However, what they need from their running backs this season is dependability, durability, and diversity. Right. They need somebody who can do a lot, stay healthy, and not fumble. And that, and all of those arrows based on last year point to Cam Scattaboo. So I think they'll probably be good regardless of who number 2 is. But I came on this show last week and I screamed from the mountaintops that running back depth just doesn't matter. It just does. You just need your guy that's going to go out there, get 65, 70% of the carries, and the rest will take care of itself. It's really, really hard actually for people to establish themselves when they aren't seeing regular carries. And so, if they're going to have a lightning and thunder type situation here, I think it would probably surprise me. I fully expect this to be the Cam Scattaboo show.
Absolutely.
And maybe 3 other guys fighting for 10 total carries every game.
So here's the thing. A name that hasn't been mentioned when it came to the wide receiver room, and now when it comes to the running back room, is a player that I'm extremely excited about. Raleek Brown. Where do you see him fitting in more so? Is he just a positionless guy who's going to get some running back carries, going to get some wide out touches, going to get some screens? Or do you think that he fits a certain role?
I think football is a pretty much a kind of a copycat game. And if somebody is doing something that works, you're going to try to emulate it. I think he might be one of the most agile players on the roster. And you look at some of the pre-snap motion stuff that Tyreek Hill has been able to do in the NFL. And I think every team is going to try to do whatever poor man's version of that they can cobble together. Right. Arizona State just happens to have a couple of athletes that are more than capable and have the intelligence to pull some of that pre-snap stuff off. And so I would see him as somebody you want to try to get the ball within 3-4 yards of the line of scrimmage and see what he can do afterward. I personally expect him to have as many catches as he does carries.
Yeah. I think that he's definitely going to be a Swiss Army knife for this team, and especially the type of player that I think at the end of the day, you're going to maybe see Kenny Dillingham use a lot more at the end of the season, just because he's going to start figuring out new little tricks and quirks and how to exploit opposing defenses with somebody like Raleek Brown. But like you said, it is the Cam Scadaboo show, without a doubt, and this team will go as he goes. However, one of the things that you're not talking about as much, not you, Ralph, but the Royal you, he's going to look like a different running back this year, purely based off of body type, right? He's slimmed down. He's going for more speed, less brute force. And that could be a good thing in the fact that he's not going to just try to power through somebody in front of him and over the season that's going to save him some miles. But also losing that big roughness about him, and not that's going to be completely gone, but slimming down, becoming more of an agile back, opens you up to maybe a little bit more wear and tear. Maybe your body isn't as prepared to handle the amount of carries that he had to have last year, but you're also hoping that you don't have to handle the quarterback duties and the punting duties that you also had to handle last year for Cam Scadaboo. Are you excited, worried, neutral about possibly a new look running back one?
The only thing I'm worried about when it comes to Cam Scadaboo is whether or not his helmet fits. There's about 370,000 times last year when I thought he had a concussion because of the little he did after every single play. So, I would say this. It is risky business when you go into your final season in college football and you have one eye on helping your team and one eye on the NFL.
Yeah.
We went through this with DJ Foster switching positions to receiver. Mixed results, right? Was a fantastic receiver, but didn't get drafted. And so even though he deserved to be drafted and spent several years in the NFL, it's a thing where it's a risk. It's absolutely a risk. I'd say this team probably needs the, juggernaut version of him that was carrying the ball last year. But at the same time, this is somebody who is thinking about the next step. He looks certainly different. I mean, like strikingly different. I think his instincts though is going to be where it's really interesting, because you could change your body, but can you change your mind?
Right.
If he goes between guard and tackle and he sees a linebacker, is he going to try to run that linebacker over? And is he going to feel the difference with his new physique? Then again, is recovery going to be easier for him? Because there were a couple of weeks last year where I don't think he practiced between games. So, I think that it's high risk, high reward, but it is a risk. And Arizona State fans have plenty of instances to draw on, of somebody who is looking toward the NFL, maybe makes a change and the results could go one way or the other.
Yeah, there is risk with it. And I think, like you said, anytime it changes, there is that upside though as well. And if you want to stay positive and say, maybe he doesn't change his mindset and the fact that he's still willing to run somebody over, but maybe his body also allows him to have a couple other options with that as well. And over the course of a season, that could maybe save him some potential wear and tear and just keep him chugging along and maybe even practicing as well as the season went on. There's some risk in that, but there is no risk with our friends over at Game Time, because Game Time, they are here to make the absolute best ticket purchasing experience for you. And it speaks to the inner soul of high school me, the fact that you can procrastinate as long as possible and actually get rewarded for it, because Game Time is going to give you the absolute best deal and lowest prices. And the best part is the closer that you get to either tip-off, kickoff, puck drop, the start of a show, whether it's comedy, theater, music, you can get fantastic priced seats. Not only that, but they also have different deals for different zones. You can see your ticket, see where you would be, views from every single venue. They also have cancellation protection, job loss protection, and a lowest price guarantee. They really do just about everything. Ralph, you can save up to 60% when you wait and do some last minute ticket shopping with Game Time. That's a good deal.
You called me a hard worker and told me that procrastination is good. I'm going to need to send this to like 5 of my 7 elementary school teachers.
I got you. I'm here for you, Ralph. And so is Game Time, guys. Game Time has the lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. If you find a better deal than Game Time, you will actually make money. They'll honor that. But here's the thing. You're not going to find a better deal. Plus, if you have not used Game Time yet, you can download the Game Time app, create an account, and you can use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And I want to welcome on a new friend of the program, and that is Rugged Road. And you might be asking yourself, Erik, what is Rugged Road? Well, they're dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Now, I recently went on my honeymoon and I went to some beaches and I brought myself, no big deal. And I brought myself an old cooler that's been in my family for a while.
Yuck.
It sucked. It wasn't the same. And now I'm looking at Rugged Road and I'm going, man, I need to get my hands on some Rugged Road now. You ask, what's so great about it? Well, that's a big, big, big cooler there. Guess what? It floats. It floats. You can put it in water and it floats. It's lightweight design, but it's also got durability and dependability. It's crafted to handle the toughest environments. They're built to last, keep up with any adventure, and it can keep the stuff inside of it cool for up to 7 days or sometimes even longer than that. That's a really long time if you're out camping, if you're out and about and you just want to keep some drinks cool and you don't want to worry about having to replenish ice or anything like that. You can just get some Rugged Road. And you might be thinking, well, I really want some Rugged Road, but I want a deal as well. Give me the deal, Erik. Well, you can use promo code PHNX to get ready for your summer adventures. All you have to do is head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com. Use code PHNX for 10% off your order. Lightweight, durable, always floating upright. It's perfect on land or in water. So leave that old heavy cooler at home. I'm speaking to myself from a week ago, and get yourself a better cooler for the new season. Rugged Road, your ultimate outdoor companion. All right, we've talked a lot about the offense, Ralph. A lot. Let's go to the defense. One of the biggest questions when it came to position rooms that Totri and I tackled before I went on my honeymoon and before he went on his vacation were the safeties and the competition to safety, because there is a lot of talent. Just throwing some names out there. You've got Xavier Alford, who we mentioned earlier today, Shamari Simmons, Kamari Wilson, Montana Warren, and Miles Ghost Rouser. Out of, let's just say, those 5, who are your current starting safeties?
I'm not sure about starting, but I have been watching a lot of these clips of Montana Warren.
Okay.
And I like my safeties to be a little bit reckless.
Yes.
And he's shown some of that. I think he plays the ball well. But then again, I have not necessarily had the best track record on this position. Chris Edmonds was a guy I absolutely loved. And I think he's a guy who's camping in the NFL as well right now. But that's somebody who we saw flashes from, but never really saw consistent reps. I'm interested in what it is that Brian Ward is looking for, because that is such an important position to the type of defense that comes from this North Dakota State coaching tree. You look at there's guys that have been coached in this exact style of defense that had monstrous college careers, went on to have solid NFL careers, and were leading the team in tackles. Andrew Wingard, and I know somebody, when they saw that I was going to be on the show today, said they didn't want to learn anything about University of Wyoming. I'm sorry, but Andrew Wingard, I think he might be one of the all-time tackling leaders at University of Wyoming from the safety position. He's been on the Jaguars for about 4 years. And so, it really is going to be somebody who can hold up, somebody who can play the run well, somebody who blitzes from time to time, and also has the ability to play the pass. So I'm curious from you who you think has the most wide array skill set, because I think it really falls down to maybe not the person who's the most excellent in any one given area, but the person who can do the most, and especially the person who can come up in the run game and make sure that people aren't getting big chunk plays.
I think the name that is standing out to me is one that we've already mentioned on this episode, and that's X. Alford is just a good do-it-all kind of guy for you, and somebody who's got the body for it. He's got the mind for it. Sharon said that he was even put in lots of leadership positions in this offseason. We've talked to him. He's absolutely ready to run, ready to go. But, Shamari as well, last season, I think proved a lot. And I think that those are going to be your two starting safeties, at least slotted in to start at the beginning of the year. William Jasper in the chat says Montana Warren and Alford were slotted to start last year, so he thinks they get it this year, with Shamari and Miles Rouser rotating in. I would give Shamari the nod, but I understand why you would give Montana the nod as well. I do think that with all of them, Kamari Wilson's kind of getting lost in the mix, and he has a lot of intangibles and a lot of things to be built on. I don't know if he's going to be getting the most burn out of any of these guys. I do think he'll see some time, but I'm going to go X and Shamari for my starting, with Montana and Miles Rouser mixing in. The thing I love about Ghost is the dude just hits so hard. He just hits so hard, and he runs right into it. And I love that out of my safety. I want my safety to strike a little bit of fear in my opponents. I don't want them to feel safe out there. And Miles Rouser does not make people feel safe. When it comes to Kamari Wilson, from your perspective, Ralph, is there a world where maybe he gets a good amount of burn?
Well, like I said, and thank you to the chat for pointing out the fact that they were kind of slotted for a certain lineup, and they didn't end up being able to go with that last year, thanks to NCAA. But yes, I mean, this is somebody who, this is going to sound so disrespectful to Arizona State, but understand that I'm talking about the levels. I think that as a high school student, he probably had a harder time dealing with things at IMG than he does dealing with three quarterbacks trying to find their place in practice at ASU every day. And you talk about his ability to hit hard, and sometimes that's just a level of anticipation and also knowing what they're about to do,
right?
And just really wanting to to prove yourself and get your opportunity. He was a very, very special high school player. It's a reason he was recruited out to be in Bradenton. I don't envision a situation in which he's completely lost. It's just going to be consistency. This defense is so reliant upon the safety position that I might be wrong about this, but I think Jake Dickert might have been at Washington State for Jalen Thompson, who's with the Cardinals now. You just think about like what he had to do at Washington State, the amount of responsibility that was on his shoulders. And I just always come back to who can do the most, not necessarily the best in any one given area. And, he's aggressive, but this is not, I genuinely have this question. It's not rhetorical. Does he have the football IQ to beat out the rest of these guys? Remains to be seen. I think just like with a couple of other positions on this team, it's really going to come down to dependability, and the pressure is on. You make a mistake, you might get yanked. The next guy up has a solid game. You might not see the field again. We saw that happen last year with Tate Romney, who didn't start out as somebody who was a starter and then took advantage of his opportunity. They felt like he was dependable, and then all of a sudden that position, was his to lose.
Yeah, I think this is another one of those rooms that is going to end the season looking a little bit different than how it starts. And you are going to kind of have to forge yourself in the fire and see who's making the right plays, who is playing really well together, because that's also something that you don't want to forget is chemistry back there as well. And rotating guys is great, and it's actually necessary in certain points, but at the same time, you don't want to just not have somebody secured in there and at least your starters be somewhat consistent. So I'm excited to see. I would say X and Shamari, but I do think that there is a case for almost everybody in that room to at least get a chance or a look at starting. Last question for me, and then I know you have a question prepared as well. This one is not one that will be able to be answered until the end of the season. And it's a very, very wide one. Is Kenny Dillingham's method of building a team and rebuilding a program working? Because you can't really give any answers based off of last season. You can barely evaluate players from last season given the amount of injuries and the amount of moving variables that happened with this team. But presumably going into this year, you're going to get a lot more answers about the type of football talent being recruited, the type of coaching putting around them, and what that all looks like when it's blended together. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be the final verdict, but I think, Ralph, for me, the end of this season will be the first time that you can really take a look back and truly get in the nitty-gritty and evaluate the way this program is being built back up.
There are maybe 2 coaches in America at Arizona State's price point, what they're willing to compensate a coach for, that I believe could have done a better job as far as evaluating and grabbing super high rated talent that maybe didn't show out where they were before. But I mean, we were just talking about Kamari Wilson. Do you really have the opportunity as the highest rated recruit in Florida's entire 2022 class to go out and be a superstar immediately? No, this stuff comes with development over time. And so Kenny Dillingham's getting people that have a year or 2 of lifting weights and practicing at a high level under their belt. He's putting him in an opportunity to see, can you actually do it on the football field? Those coaches, I mean, Dion is one of them, as far as just collecting talent that Arizona State feasibly could have had at that price point. And, had things gone down maybe a little bit earlier, maybe a guy like Billy Napier, who had a history here. But no, and obviously, Billy Napier's on his last legs at Florida right now. And, after he had gotten to Florida, wouldn't have been an Arizona State's price point. But I look at just on paper what Kenny Dillingham has done. I look at his players' reactions to him, and so much of this depends on quarterback play that it's ridiculous. But, I look at the level of talent that he's been able to get to Arizona State and the enthusiasm they've had about playing for him, and how that's happened not over 2 seasons, because it's really been a year and a half.
Right.
And, you got to compare him to the field. And I know that Arizona State, they liked the idea of bringing Tom Herman in. I don't think he would have been able to do this. And so is it working as far as raising Arizona State's overall level of talent? Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing that's going to be much more important is depth, because Arizona State did absolutely everything they could with the roster they had last year. And some of the stuff we're about to talk about shows how badly they gassed out at the end of the year. And even in that period of gassing out, they devised an entire game plan that was quarterback free to rid themselves of having to deal with Laiatu Latu, and they beat UCLA in California. So, I think that you raise the level of talent with what this coaching staff is capable of. And I do think very, very highly of the majority of the coaches on this staff. A couple, it remains to be seen. Your Marcus Arroyos, your Hines Ward, we got to see the results. You can't just say they're good because you like them, right?
Right.
I do like them. But Sean Aguano, proven. Jason Mond's known that guy forever. He's a genius. Kenny Dillingham, the guy said it. He loves ball. He's thinking about it all the time. The best ways
literally does not stop.
To succeed.
He doesn't stop.
They got a good offensive line coach. They have a very, very good defensive coordinator. Like there's a good staff, and now they have good players. And I do think the model is going to be proven out. Everything's just relative to what your expectations are for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't go into the season expecting a complete 180, complete turnaround. This team is going to for sure be in a bowl game. But to me, you talked about other coaches at price points and in similar situations. I don't believe that there is another human being on this planet that could have walked into this job and has handled it the same way and built it the same way that Kenny Dillingham has. And that's not just all the things that you've already mentioned as far as assembling a staff and being a football junkie himself and also relating to players well. But it also comes down to just absolute love for the program and love for the state and belief in what you're doing and where you are, because that makes a difference. It makes a massive difference. And it's part of the reason why some of these guys are willing to come here in an era of college football that's full of BS, that's full of lies, that's full of fake promises and a whole lot of money being thrown out. Kenny Dillingham is just as real as it gets. And at the end of the day, I think when time goes on and what you'll see from this season and next season and so on and so forth for as long as he's here, you will see consistent growth in that role and in that program. And that's going to lead to what we've just already seen. Like you said, ASU's talent level is a lot higher. Their floor is a lot higher than it was last season, to where we're talking about these position battles and you're saying, okay, even if somebody does get injured, you do have somebody that you can step in and relatively be confident and rely on. And this is coming from a school that's just now getting their NIL together, right? Like they were behind a school that was dealing with remnants of a coaching staff past that haunts this program, a bowl ban that haunted this program last year. And sure, maybe at the end of the day, they weren't competing for a bowl game, but that's still just a massive slash to like morale right before a season starts when none of those people were involved in what you're getting punished for. He's been dealt one of the worst hands that you could possibly imagine, and he's still been able to get good out of it and to be able to grow. And for that reason, I can't say it's guaranteed. And if we see something different, obviously you talk about it then. I do have full faith that by the end of this year, we'll see improvement. And after next and the year after that, we're going to be talking about a completely different program. But you mentioned in the middle of your answer that there was something we want to talk about being gassed out and maybe about just not having it all together last year. And I asked you if you had any questions, and you came with a very interesting one with a lot of research. So now, Ralph, I give the floor to you.
So yeah, and I'm interested to hear from people in the chat, but Totri, oh my gosh.
Hi, Totri.
I know. I appreciate that's a good looking man right there. I know what my face looks like, so please don't come on here and gaslight me, Anthony.
Anthony.
So
how many times have you heard that?
Anthony. I'm going to start. You know what? They call me nicknames. I'm just going to start calling him Anthony.
Specifically the "don't gaslight me, Anthony."
Maybe more often than we
about
think.
25 times last year.
Yeah, probably.
You gotta put stank on the first and last syllable. So here's the deal. I seem to remember, and sometimes I would quote somebody who is very famous on the internet, but facts are not always feelings. Feelings are not always facts. So I felt like last year that Arizona State had a lot of trouble quarter one, quarter three. So I went back and I did the research, and I was not necessarily correct. But it really came down to, can Arizona State score? Can Arizona State score? I think they'll be able to move the ball. I think they'll be infinitely better than they were offensively last year. But you have to score. And here's what the research bore out. Breaking it down quarter by quarter, Arizona State was 1-5-5 in the first quarter. That's just as simple as having more points than the other team. I'm not counting the first game of the season. That's an FCS opponent. That is a scrimmage. It does not count for the purposes of what Arizona State is trying to build toward. So let's take the 11 teams they played that actually matter on their schedule. They won one first quarter, one all year. I think it might have been UCLA. And then they were 4-7 in the second quarter, 4-5-2 in the third, 4-6-1 in the fourth. Getting out to a good start is going to be incredibly important for this team. To only win one first quarter all year, you can't do that. Is it impressive that they matched with 5 teams last year? I suppose, but they were 13, 23, and 8 overall. They had 11 2+ score deficit quarters. 11. Only 4 of those came in the first 7 weeks. Stuff got real hairy toward the end of the season. They had 4 3+ score deficit quarters at the end of the year. That just goes to show you what they were dealing with when they had to play Oregon, Utah, and that brutal Territorial Cup at the end of the season. They did not have a 2+ score quarter. I'm not even saying 2-point conversion. I would count that as 8+, right? We'll say 8+. They had 2 quarters where they scored 7 more than the opponent, and 7 was their best margin of any quarter. So they were hanging on for dear life. That he was having to coach his ass off all year last year. And that is really what it comes down to for me. Can you score? Can you score? Because you are there's no room for error in the rest of the game. And probably their best quarter overall, they were only minus 18 third quarter all year. So they're going into halftime, they're coming out, they're making fantastic adjustments, and then fourth quarter comes along, and they're back on the struggle bus. We knew that the University of Washington game was the perfect example of that. The USC game was another where they actually had opportunities, but because they couldn't score, they lose these games. Not being able to capitalize against Colorado, not being able to capitalize against Cal. Can you score points? And that is my question. Everybody in the chat, for you, do you think that they are going to be able to get the ball in the end zone, field goals, whatever it is? So much of that probably comes down to the quarterback taking care of the football and all that. But last year, it is brutal to think that they only had 2 quarters where they were 1 touchdown ahead of the opponent. And you really look at it, and it gets bad in those last 4 games.
Yeah, and especially the last 4 games painted the picture of just a team that's just gone through so much attrition up to that point, just between different injuries to different positions over and over and over again. They were limping to the finish line, for lack of a better word. And I do think we've talked about the upgrade in talent. We've talked about having another year under Kenny Dillingham in his system. You also talk about changing an offensive coordinator, where at the beginning of the season last year, Kenny Dillingham wasn't calling plays. And that was a mid-season shift that happened. Now you're going in with Marcus Arroyo. You're having continuity between the offseason and going into the season with an offensive coordinator, with a better offensive line, you're losing your best weapon, Elijah Badger, but keeping your other one in Cam Scattaboo, while having a very deep wide receiver room with a lot of different type of talent. I would say points will be less of a problem this year. I can't go out and say they're going to win every first quarter or they're going to score way more than the other team all the time. Those are things that you need to maybe see after we get some game action. But on a baseline level, I don't think anything will compare to last year. And especially when you get to the end of that season, I think they're going to be more prepared. I think they're going to be better coached. And I think as a team, offensively and defensively, they're just going to be more talented and more cohesive. And like Sharon said in the chat, I think last year was such a weird, bad situation. It's so hard to compare. I think we'll score more this year. We're better. And I think that's just a good way to sum it up. They'll be better this year. Now, how much better? That's kind of left to be seen. But it's a wide range. And if everything goes right, you can see a team competing for a bowl game. And if everything goes wrong, then I still don't think that you look at as bad of a situation as what the numbers that you just laid out show from last season.
Yeah, I mean, just the idea that you go into 5 different second quarters playing from behind, 10 different second quarters without an advantage, that just puts so much pressure on you to not fall apart and to be perfect. And the line between people accusing you of losing your team and your team gassing out, it's a very, very thin line, right? We saw that in the Territorial Cup where University of Arizona didn't throw a pass in the second half, right? That was determined by Arizona State fans to be the team quitting on the coach. Last year, they get blown out of the water by University of Arizona, and we're all sitting around saying, this team obviously gassed out. They had to start 4 different quarterbacks. It would be great to know what was going on with the quarterbacks this year, but Drew Pine left, so we don't have his dad feeding stuff to Pete Thamel. We have to figure this stuff out on our own. So, I just wanted to make you laugh one more time before we quit.
Appreciate that. Oh, dude. Yeah. Listen, Ralph, you've been fantastic. You brought the numbers. You brought the facts. We've resolved old trauma from high school and from your father, so you are a hard worker. Yet also procrastinating is okay. I think we've accomplished a lot on this edition of the PHNX Sun Devils Show. Highly, 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 highly encourage everybody to give Ralph a follow on Twitter. I would assume most of you in here are listening already do, but if you don't, it's his name, Ralph Amsden, out on Twitter. You can find it on my Twitter account at Erik Ruby. I'll retweet him as well. Just fantastic stuff as always. Great voice in this community, but you all probably already know that. So big shout out to Ralph. Big shout out to Damon Dog, lifelong Sun Devil fan and Sun Devil supporter behind the Mac right now, making the magic happen. Yeah, you are. You are a Sun Devil alum as well. Just absolutely loving on maroon and gold. Once again, guys, Totri out on vacation until Tuesday. Shane is out on vacation, I think, for the rest of his life. He's just on the longest vacation known to man. So I'm going to be holding down the fort for the next couple of days, working on hopefully getting some other guests. Maybe Ralph comes back if the people demand it, which I know that they will. And I'll be heading up to Camp T on Saturday for the scrimmage. We're going to get some good footage from there and maybe record a little bit as well. No live show from up there, but we will be there with all the updates possible on social media at PHNX_Sun Devils. And I will also have a lot of updates for you on Monday. But until then, there's only one way to wrap it up, Totri or no Totri, and that is by saying this: Go Devils and peace.
We all silly like the mayor.